Welcome back to my channel. This episode is all about trees. This will be a difficult build without the help of the tree controller mode. I'll start by working on the river banks. Those areas have different plants compared to the rest of the map. They also include dense boulders and rocks. The tree controller mode will help me create custom brushes made out of tree combinations. The vanilla tree selection is not wide enough for what I need. Accordingly, I will sometimes use trees from different biomes, as long as they resemble the species I cannot find in the available assets. For instance, London plane trees do not naturally exist in Lebanon, yet I will be using them. I will now build the river trees brush. Poplar, London plane, oak, chestnut. Wild green bush 1 and 2, wildflower bush 1 and 2. The maximum elevation will be set to 8,112, which is the highest altitude on the map. The minimum elevation is 0, which is sea level. For areas other than riverbanks, tree brushes will be assigned specific upper and lower altitude limits, since some trees do not grow at certain elevations. The tree controller mod brush does not allow the cursor to place trees below the minimum or above the maximum elevations. So if you accidentally paint outside those bounds, nothing happens, no trees will be added. Each plant will now receive a probability weight. 25 for poplar, 25 for London plane. I will make their total add up to 100 so it behaves like a percentage distribution. Then for oak, 5 for chestnut, 10 for wild green bush 1, 10 for wild green bush 2, 5 for wildflower bush 1, and finally 10 for wildflower bush 2. Let us test the brush. Looks empty. The probability distribution is correct, yet the density or brush strength in this case is low at 50%. Let's add the age variations for each tree type. All trees will allow young, adult, and elderly variations except for the two wildflower bushes, which will have no elderly versions. The tree controller mod helps here, as it allows the brush strength to reach 300% instead of the vanilla 100%. The purple color you see on the trees will not appear during the gameplay. Those represent the X, Y, and Z axes of the asset. They are actually red, blue, and green, but when zoomed out they look purple. To view the trees without the three axes, press the camera button at the bottom and they disappear. Filling these green non-cliff riverbanks with the river trees brush will definitely look much better. That was definitely the right decision. Those trees reaching the edge of the playable area do not look nice, as if they have hit an invisible wall. I will refine their distribution and density later off camera so the transition looks smoother. Now let's add the boulders. I will choose the random boulder option so the brush uses all the boulder variations. I like how some of them are submerged. They definitely look more natural this way. For some reason, whenever I switch menus, the time of the day changes randomly. Devs, please fix this. I will not spread the builders away from the river banks like I did with the trees. I will keep them close to the riverbed. In some areas, they look denser than needed. This tiny river at the edge of the map is always a suitable testing ground. I don't really like how dense they are. You know what? I will redo the boulders so they look better. I will keep the 300% density, yet I will move the brush more quickly along the river banks. Now let's clean the cliffs a bit from those misplaced boulders. Looks much more natural now. I'm happy with this result. Now it's time for the final touch on the river, the rocks. I will paint those rocks underneath those trees, unlike the boulders, which I restricted to the banks directly beside the river. I will use the random rock option so all the 30 rock variations are placed. It is not necessary to paint the rocks in the water, as they are tiny and won't make any visible graphical difference. There they are. They look good when zoomed in. They are being painted there now, but they are so small they won't appear unless zoomed in. A tiny cleanup along the playable border and I'm done. This is perfect. I completed all the other rivers off camera and now it's time to move to the next brush, the high altitude tree brush. Oak, chestnut, and pine alongside the 4 wild bushes. $30 for oak, $25 for chestnut, $10 for pine. These trees do not grow old at such altitudes, so I will remove the elderly variation from them. I will keep the maximum elevation at 8,112, as this is the highest brush in the game. Yet I will set the minimum elevation to 1,320. These trees actually grow at elevations higher than 660 meters in real life. But in episode 1, to make the mountain range look more dramatic, I doubled the terrain height. Accordingly, trees that naturally grow above 660 meters in Lebanon will now appear above 1,320 in-game. Eight is the probability weight for the wild green bush 1. 8 is also for wild green bush 2. 7 is for wildflower bush 1. And 12 is for wildflower bush 2. There are elderly wild green bushes at those altitudes, but for the wildflower bushes, there will be no elderly versions, same as trees in this brush. I think the brush I created will fill these mountains just like in real life. In Lebanon, the western mountain range facing the sea is known for being heavily vegetated, unlike the eastern range farther inland. Clouds carrying moisture from the Mediterranean hit the western range first, creating heavy rainfall there. Some rain continues toward the eastern range but in smaller amounts. That is why eastern Lebanon is much more arid than the western side. Let me try the brush. Not bad, not bad at all. Though the brush is starting to lag a bit. The more trees I place on the map, the laggier it becomes. Placed trees now appear several seconds after I paint them. The mountain looks much fuller now. I will paint a bit farther from the edge since the brush should be less dense near the playable border. It will still behave like an invisible wall for trees, but the transition will look smoother. I will stick to the small brush for now while I'll continue testing. I will also avoid brushing near roads, train tracks and rivers to create softer transitions and more natural density. Enjoy the time-lapse music. The brush reached 1,320 meters and then stopped placing trees. So now it's time to create the lower region's tree brush. This brush is made of oak, pine and chestnut trees, along with the 4 regular wild bushes. Probability weight will be 40 for oak, 20 for pine, 15 for chestnut, 6 for each wild green bush, 5 for wild flower bush 1, and finally 8 for wild flower bush 2. All trees and bushes will allow young, adult and elderly variations except for the 2 wild flower bushes, which do not have elderly versions. The maximum altitude will be 1,320 meters, matching the minimum altitude of the higher region's brush. The minimum altitude will be 720 meters, which represents 360 meters in real life due to the stretched terrain scale. I placed all the trees down to 720 meters and this is how it looks so far. From the distance you can see lines passing through the trees. Those are the high voltage electricity lines I placed earlier. The variation in tree density really resembles real life. I will now compile the pre-final brush. It contains pine and oak alongside the 4 regular brushes. Probability weight for pine is 55, 10 for oak, 10 for wild green bush 1 and 2, 7 for wild flower bush 1, and finally 8 for wild flower bush 2. All 3 ages are allowed except no elderly for the 2 flower bushes. The maximum altitude is 720 meters, matching the minimum of the previous brush. The minimum altitude is 220 meters. That represents 100 meters in real life. Accordingly, this brush will paint vegetation in all areas above Beirut's hills. Here we go. All areas above 220 meters are now covered with vegetation. The last brush is the coastal brush. Pine, oak, and the 4 regular bushes. All will have young and adult variations, except the 2 wild green bushes, which also included elderly versions. Probability weight for pine is 20, 10 for oak, 30 for wild green bush 1, 20 for wild green bush 2, 10 for each wild flower bush. As you can see, coastal areas contain more bushes than trees. The maximum altitude is the minimum of the previous brush, 220 meters. And the minimum is 0 at sea level. The brush has become very laggy. So many trees, I guess.